I'm a childbirth educator. I teach pregnancy yoga, postnatal yoga, calm birth, and I also work as a doula. So I support birth sometimes, and I love the mums and the babies, but I also love the dads, have a real heart for the dads. I've just taken 6 months off most of this year because I had burnout from working so hard for, I think last burnout was after 10 years, and this has been another 10 years. So I was due a break, not to have to think about pregnancy and birth for a while. And I'm just starting to come back into my work. So I'm looking for inspiration here today. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I hope that we can provide it for you. And I was just saying to Karen so Karen's graduated, she's ready to run the program, and just sort of reiterating with her that the Village Elders group is the main resource for that. I mean, not everybody's doing the facilitated training to run the parents program. I think most people are doing it just to integrate the information with their own way of working with clients, but certainly for those that are hoping to run the parents program, you know, the Village Elders, I hope, will be a great resource for you. And, you know, I hear you about the burnout. I think I was probably getting close to that when I got sick. So I think it's, you know, I can't tell you, well, you know how important it is to listen to your bodies and, you know, heed those messages that, you know, and take that and step away. It's hard to do, but it's even harder to be sick and to do it involuntarily. So I'm glad to hear that you gave yourself permission to do that, Karen. I think that's huge. I think it's also a good opportunity to see what excites us about coming back, and that's a real indicator of where our passions lie, and that might be different to what it was 10 years ago or 10 years before. I know that I've really not wanting to work so much with couples anymore. You know, the counselling for me is something that's gone. It's really the education that I'm moving towards and getting a lot, I guess, more back from. Counselling was a lot of giving out and not getting a lot in return, and I think that was my burnout. So that's been a learning for me, because I was missing it and thinking about going back. But I've actually decided that I won't be seeing couples in that capacity anymore. So not for the foreseeable future anyway. So there you go. It's good to step away. Okay, Rosie, our solo New Zealander. Did you think about that? You're it.
Oh, I'm it.
You're it.
Hi, I'm Rosie. I'm, as I say, I'm in New Zealand. I live in Wellington, which is the bottom of the North Island, where we get all the winds, which we are getting at the moment. We've had gales overnight. Gosh, I really sort of connect with, you know, those last sentiments. I mean, I've taken actually probably about 18 months off now, but I've been working on really the Becoming Us. That came along at a time when I knew I needed to step back, didn't want to admit that it was burnout. You know, we hate to admit that we can't do all this, we can't be everything to everybody. But, you know, no, I came to the realization a few months ago that, yeah, I really burnt out, and and I really needed to let go. And it's, you know, we try and encourage our clients to let go, but it's so hard, isn't it? And as you said, Ellie, you know, to actually, you come to that realization that actually you want to do something different. And yeah, and that sense as well, that counselling was actually very draining emotionally and physically, and took a lot of toll on my body too. And are you still there?
Yep, still here.
Yep. Oh, the picture's gone. But anyway, so you know, I've always been interested in training, and that was why I took on, when I talked to Ellie a couple of years or so ago, and I thought the Becoming Us was a really good platform to bring over to New Zealand and to get into the communities working with couples, because I certainly found that a lot in my work, that couples struggle with their relationship, And even later down the track, you know, a lot of their issues come back to those early months and years when they were rearing children. So yeah, for me, I've graduated the facilitators course, and I'm eagerly awaiting my pack of all the information about the actual training, you know, the program for parents, and I want to develop that over the next few months. And I think realistically, you know, take it out in February. Nothing happens here over December, January, so February when all the courses start back up again. But I need to sort of do some networking and advertising. So really look forward to hearing from some of you who've done some courses and see what are the things that I need to think about. What are the important lessons that you're learning about how to take it out there and who to take it to. Yeah. Lovely to meet you as well.
Mm-hmm.
You too. It's great to see you again, Rosie. Fantastic. Sajal, would you like to go next?
Yes.
And welcome, Ruth. I can see you down there.
Hi, Ellie. And
Sajal, would you like to introduce yourself?
yes. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Hi, I'm Sejal. I am a postpartum doula and a lactation consultant. I am in Portland, Oregon, like Barb. And hi, Barb. I was excited about Ellie since the time I read her book, and I had the good fortune of, you know, taking her training, part one of her training in person. When NACEF, the National Northwest Area Childbirth Educators, organized her to come here and teach the class. And I'm still kind of going slowly, taking little tiny steps to become a facilitator, but hopefully I get to be one soon. And I want to also observe a few classes before I can think of getting certified. So Barb would be the person who I would probably talk to about.
Barbsy.
And
That would be a great part of your learning.
yeah.
I wish we had enough facilitators that everybody could do that. I think that's probably the best way to learn, is to observe somebody doing it, especially somebody that's as experienced as Barb is now. 3 classes under her belt. Welcome, Sajal. It's lovely to see your face again. I have very fond memories of meeting you and having dinner with you after our conference, hanging out with you. And yeah, it was absolutely fantastic to do that training in person. I love training. That's where I get a lot of my energy from, is meeting people and doing love. So yeah, I would love to do more of that, especially if it's somewhere nice and I get to hang out with you guys. Welcome. Natalie, hi. Do you want to go next?
Yeah, I've just unmuted myself. So I don't know if anyone can see, but I'm just sitting here with my little girl. She's just fallen asleep for the meeting. So the sound keeps crackling up, but I'll just keep talking. I'm up here in Newcastle in New South Wales, Australia, and my specialties are birth education as well. So I sort of do a bit of hypnobirthing as a clinical hypnotherapist, but I've also always included a lot of relationship counselling and communication and assertiveness and intimacy work. I love working with birth to increase the idea that people can become more connected and more of a team, which is why I was really interested in this whole beautiful becoming us. My personal journey was that when I had my first child, my partner and I did have big relationship problems, and so I divorced him. And so it's quite interesting. I'm now with a new partner, with a new baby, many years later, many years later. And we have a pretty good relationship, very functional and very good communication and mutual respect and all those really good things. So it's actually hard for me to remember what it was like to have a baby in a bad situation, like a more of a problem relationship. So yeah, it's a good reminder for me to remember why I even did this work, because I can sort of just almost presume, like when I work with my couples, I almost assume that they'll do well and that they'll always communicate well. And goodness knows really what happens to them after they leave. I know I bring them together as well as I can, and I give them a lot of skills ready for that. But yeah, I definitely need to be much more aware of the challenges of the stages of parenthood. So part of me doing this and graduating and being in the elders group is I probably haven't really thought much about introducing it because I almost assume no one needs it. So yeah, being really, really aware of that, just sitting here thinking about that while everyone was chatting. Because I think, yeah, we actually do know that there are many, many couples that really, really need this education and this extra awareness and support. And I guess I've had a long career getting hypnobirthing courses out there, so I'm really, really interested in the whole topic of how much this course can cost, how it can run, how we can attract people, how we can market it, how it can go with certain numbers, because that's always been, I've learned a lot, I suppose, for hypnobirthing. So yeah, I'm really interested in that conversation indeed. And the only thing happening with me at the moment, Ellie, is I have kind of graduated, but I don't know what the program is and I don't know where it is. So that's probably just some lapse in me doing all these other things in my life. But I do want to see and get my hands on and touch and feel this program so that I can start either directly teaching it or at least integrating it much more into what I do. I can't hear you now, Ellie.
That's because I muted myself. So email Kelly, support@ellietaylor.com, and ask her for access to the program. And so what you'll get is the program, the 5 sessions, and the marketing materials and the resources for running the program. And you'll see in there that we use one of the handouts. I don't know if you remember it from level 1 about the challenges of early parenthood. There's a handout there. So there will be an active conversation with the group about what the potential challenges are. It's sort of baked in, I suppose, in a lot of ways, but there's also an overt exercise about what the normal challenges are. So, you know, the group will be well aware of what the challenges are.
Okay, so that sounds awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. So, and you haven't missed out on much because it's changed a little bit. It's going to change even a little bit more, probably with a little bit of feedback from Barb. I think Barb's got some ideas because Barb's been running it. She can tell you about that in a minute. But so it's still evolving. So you haven't missed out on much. I mean, it's still really early days as far as I'm concerned. And you know, we're in pilot mode as far as that's concerned. So anyone that wants to run it, in my mind, it's running it as a pilot. I'll be actively, I expect and am actively asking for feedback from each participant on each session because I want to be able to feed that back into the program. So, you know, you're all pioneers. Anyone that picks it up at this point is an early adopter and a pioneer. And there is a challenge with that. And that's probably the marketing thing, that this is a new program. It's something that most couples aren't even aware that they need, but they do. We know that, but the challenge is communicating them to that. And we've just started a discussion in the Village Elders group about raising awareness and marketing. And, you know, I don't have an easy answer for that. Marketing is certainly not my strong point, not my background or even, you know, what I like to do so much. But there's a number of things happening that I think are going to raise awareness on a number of different levels that I think will be helpful. So I'll just leave it at that. But it's also about you connecting with people in your community, forming those relationships and creating those referral pathways. And I think that goes a long way just at the grassroots level to get bums on seats. So anyway, we've had those discussions in the Village Elders group. So when you've finished your training and you've seen the program, that resource is there and always will be. And we'll have lots of different people contributing to it in lots of different ways, which is so fantastic. Like, it's just an amazing resource. Yeah, that'd be exciting to get you up and running with it. Okay, Barb, I'm glad you could join us. You're in the middle of an almost Brady Bunch.
Yeah, exactly. And I have to say, everybody can hear me? Yeah? Okay.
Yep.
I will probably have to go because this is somewhat the witching hour because it's 4:20 in the afternoon and I'm soccer carpool mom this afternoon and all kinds of other stuff. So I have known Ellie for a really long time via Facebook. We got hooked up like 5 years ago, I think now, when I found her in a relationship professional Facebook page. I think it was through Facebook. Anyway, met her, formed my girl crush early on, and then started stalking her, kind of commenting on whatever she was putting out there, and bought the book, read the book, and wished the book had been written 18 years before because the background story I usually give to people is that my husband and I, 6 months after we were married, he was diagnosed with testicular cancer. And so we had to go through almost 2 years of that stuff, and we didn't know if we could ever have kids and all that kind of stuff. But I remember sitting in a bar with him during his recovery period and saying, I'm kind of glad that we had to go through that because really what could break us up now? And then we had our first baby, and I was like, oh, this could maybe do it. I mean, not quite, but it was I was really surprised. We're a really strong couple. We'd known each other for years and years before we got married. And it just didn't seem like it should be that hard. And it was really hard. So I am a health educator and I teach childbirth prep classes for OHSU and for Legacy. And I've been with them, with Legacy in particular, for 20 years as an educator. And so I mentor new educators, and I'm kind of one of the veterans of the group, I guess is the way to say it. And when Ellie created the training and I took the training and went through it, I went to Legacy and said, I'd really like to partner with you and set up these classes. I wanted them to absolutely remain, and I was very, very clear with them, just so folks know. I sat down with my supervisor and then my actual manager of the department and said, this is Ellie Taylor's program. It will never be Legacy's program, and it's also me, and I can teach it out in the community. So that needs to be part of our understanding, that if I work with Legacy, I can also work somewhere else in the community and teach these classes, and they said yes. But they bought on board with me, and they had set up, I think we started in April. So for this past year, I can't remember how many classes. There's 3 classes that I've already completed, but I already had to set up my 2018 schedule. And the Becoming As classes are, again, put into the schedule for 2018, which is really exciting because it's gone very well. And I've actually done the latest thing. Ellie and I haven't talked about this officially yet, but I talked with them about taking half of the 8 classes that we offer throughout 2018 and doing 4 of them as folks that are expectant, so still pregnant. And then 4 of the tracks will be for people who've had a baby in the last year. And that's actually born out of the fact that I've subbed for some of the Baby and Me groups that are associated with our hospital and told them what I'm doing. And they've been like, oh my God, why don't you have a class available for those of us who didn't get to take it while we were pregnant? So to me, it seems like a really, in some ways, there's a part of me that feels like that may actually be where I'm moving a little bit more. I think I'll still continue to offer it for expectant folks, but I'm really feeling like the people who are in the trenches and who are feeling like this was not what I thought it was going to be, or God, this is so much harder than I thought it was going to be, are really where it's at. And so, there's some conversations even in the community. I've been talking with the potential of maybe even teaching these classes out at Nike headquarters, which is a huge deal because Nike's massive. It's like its own town. And so I might be able to kind of get something set up there. I think in terms of marketing stuff, just for folks, if they're listening, and that's kind of a big deal for people, I've had it really easy on the front end, I have to say, because once I talked and partnered with Legacy, they put me into their registration. We priced out how much it was going to cost. You know, I don't get paid per couple, I get paid my hourly wage. And so for me, it's been kind of a really nice, easy way to get things started, because I walk in, I teach my class, I walk out, I get my paycheck every couple of weeks. So for me, there's been zero overhead, which is a huge deal. And it's one of the reasons why I proposed to start it this way, because I knew if I was going to actually be teaching in the community, it would mean finding the space, it would mean renting the space, it would mean getting the marketing materials, it would mean buying all the books. I mean, Legacy has purchased all the books ahead of time, and it's part of the class. So I'm being very straight up and honest with you all that the actual way that this has started has been the easiest way, is what I'm going to say. I mean, it wasn't, you know, I had to meet with them and I had to convince my boss and my supervisor, my manager, that this was going to fly and everything else. But in terms of cost from the beginning and the onset, it was a lot easier to do it this way. And then I have to tell you, it's just been kind of growing by word of mouth. Part of what also makes it really easy for me in some ways is that I'm in front of the group. I mean, I teach classes all the time. And so my population is childbirth, folks that are going through childbirth classes. They take a class with me and I say, I teach this class. It's all about baby-proofing your relationship. And they sign up. So my October class on Sundays is already full. My Thursday class in October is almost full. So it's going really well, having only had 3 classes done at this point. I really feel like it is more of a word of mouth thing. The hard part, I think, is actually getting things set up and getting started with it. And then I think once people start sharing what they learned in class, and I'm just going to tell you one of the things that a dad said in my last class, really cute young guy. The way I've had to structure my classes just because of how they fit, I'm doing 2 Sundays, not 4 classes, but 2 Sundays. And so it's a 5-hour class and then a 5-hour class. That's kind of it's different, and it's challenging in its own ways to actually kind of make that happen. But they came back for the second week of the class, and the dad said, somebody asked me this past week, well, what are you learning in that class? And he said, you know, it's not like I'm learning anything that I would not necessarily know. It's not like it's like earth-shattering information that I had no clue about. What I think is the huge benefit is that she and I are here for 5 hours without a phone. We're in a windowless room, he said. He pointed out it's a windowless room, so there's 0 distractions because I teach in the basement of the hospital. And he's like, and we're focused on each other and what needs to happen. And for me, I have to say, you know, as a childbirth educator, you stand up in front of the group and there's a lot of information sharing, right? I've got this information and now I'm sharing it for you. It has been fantastic to be moved into the facilitator role. I think it's a great, beautiful new skill, not new necessarily, but it's been great to expand on that skill where I just feel like I'm the container and I introduce the topic and I get these folks and I say to them, and now it's your turn to kind of work this stuff out. I'm still working out the way in which I actually talk about what we're going to be covering week to week so that people understand. Honestly, the first 2 weeks are kind of setting things up for the real big work that's going to be happening in the last 2 classes. And that has been a learning because I've had a couple folks who've come to the first session and been like, oh, she's going to give us a checklist of things that we need to know. And I'll go home with these set of tools and then we're good. And they're not really understanding that that's not my role and it's not what I'm going to do. It needs to be the 2 of you have to come ready to actually look at one another and figure this stuff out. And if they're willing and able to do it, then there's huge benefit on the other side. Just even that kind of tweaking on the front end has made a significant shift in the classes. I feel like the other piece too is that I've had some opportunities to actually get out in front of people and talk with people about it. And Sejal and I just had this opportunity. A mutual friend of ours is trying to go to India, and she is trying to raise funds for her trip. And she asked each one of us to present on different Thursday evenings what we're doing in the community for new and expectant parents. It's a great idea.
Yeah.
And we got out there and I was like, oh, she's like, you can have like 45 to 60 minutes to present. And I'm like, holy crap, what am I going to do? She didn't have any, like, there was no a possibility of actually showing any of the, like the webinar or PowerPoint or anything else, because she didn't have it. It's like a conference room and you're just going to get up there and talk. I'm like, oh my God. So I had to come up with like one sheet of information that I wanted to cover. It really was helpful. There was only 3 families that showed up. And she was like, I'm really sorry if that wasn't good. I'm like, no, it was great, because I got to put my materials together. I got to sit in front of the group. I got to really figure out what I wanted to talk about. And now I feel like I could take that piece and go to Nike, which is huge, because that would be the next step. Like, I get invited to actually kind of do a presentation to the families at Nike, and they can either then come to one of my classes that's scheduled for 2018, or I need to actually, and I think the next step is going to be find a space. Because if it goes well there, it's going to go really well. And I have to tell you, Ellie, part of what's been percolating for me is that I'm in that place right now where I cannot add more to my schedule right now. I mean, literally, I cannot add more to my schedule. I am completely maxed out in the work that I'm doing. And so it means that I have to figure out what I'm going to give up. And that is a beautiful thing. It's lovely. But what are the pieces that I'm already doing right now that I need to actually stop doing? And there's, for those of you who have been working in the field for a really long time, it's hard. You kind of understand, like, well, somebody else is going to come and fill the hole. I mean, there's no question about that. There's plenty of people that are coming up behind me. And is this the piece that I want to totally shift and change and start doing? And I kind of feel like it is. I mean, I can't give up the childbirth prep. That's a huge piece. But I did maternity tours yesterday. And it's a great money day, right? I'm going to be straight up with you. It's like many, many hours, and I get paid really well for it. And yesterday I was like, that might be the first to go, so that I can just free up my schedule a little bit more and have some opportunities to actually teach these classes in the community, as well as, because people are already saying to me, we can't get in. We can't get into your classes because we're about to have a baby and this kind of stuff. It's not fitting for their schedule. And so, I mean, Sejal, I'm very, very excited about having other people in Portland teach these classes, because I would like there to be some give and take of, oh, I can't teach it, but this woman over here does, and she does an awesome job. Like, if you can't fit my schedule, then fit her schedule. I mean, yeah, I think that there's a lot of people that talk about competition in this area, and I would just really like to be the voice that says, no, there should be way more people teaching these classes, because really every couple could benefit from this information, whether or not they think they could, or they don't think that it's going to be them. I think that we need to have people who are trained in every level of connection with these folks, from when they're pregnant to when their babies are 4. Honestly, I have dear friends that are going to get divorced probably this year. And it's stemming from after 25 years of marriage, and it goes back to their first year after the baby was born. And it's crushing me, because now it feels too late. And it's really sad to think that needs to happen. So this really dovetails the whole work of Becoming Us. It has, anybody who does the childbirth prep stuff might understand that for me, whatever, the baby's going to get out. I mean, one way or the other, it's coming out. And I'm happy to actually kind of share with you what I've got about how to make it easier or more efficient or less painful or whatever. But the reality is, my job has always been about trying to create families that thrive, always. That has been why I've been able to stay in this work for 20 years, because that's what this has been about. And that's why I love Becoming Us so much, because it really feels like, okay, there's some pretty huge impact that could happen here. I love that. So I'll shut up now, but that's...
It's all good, Barb. It's all great. Yeah, it's so exciting. So you can hear some of the things that are happening for Becoming Us and some of our facilitators, primarily Barb. So one is a postpartum program. When I first ran, it wasn't even called Becoming back then. This was even before I wrote the book. I ran a pilot for a perinatal program, and we had, I think, 6 couples, and I think and 4 of those couples already had children. And I think they definitely, the benefited from the information more than the two couples I think that were expecting. So I'm really excited about extending it to a postpartum program. I think that there's a lot more work to be done in some ways, I suppose, and the couples are going to be more ripe for taking stuff on board because they're in the thick of it. And like I almost think that's where the referrals will come from. It will come from couples who've done the postpartum course telling pregnant couples, oh, before you get here, you should do the antenatal version. I think I hope that's how it's going to happen. I think word of mouth is absolutely the best way for it to happen. And I just think, couples who are in the thick of it to say, do this course, just do the course. And I like to think that that's how.
I'll say one last thing. I run Reunion.
Both Barb and another. Oh, sorry.
I couldn't hear you. I think you got cut off for a second.
Oh, so the postpartum program is coming, and both Barb and another facilitator are looking at doing corporate classes. So that's a whole other thing, and Barb and I have yet to talk about that, but we are developing a corporate sort of option, I suppose. So it's basically delivering the antenatal program and maybe the postpartum program at workplaces. So that's another thing that's a possibility. And I also have a facilitator who's looking at developing the classes online, live but online. So that's another potential possibility. These are just things that are just in the works and that are just kind of happening. That this is what people are doing. So it's hugely exciting. And I don't know what's going to work. I don't know if anything's going to, take off or if it's all going to fall in a heap. But, Barb working for a hospital is obviously working. So if you work for a hospital, that might be your first point of inquiry is it possible to run these through the hospital? I know that I did a couple of hospital presentations a few years ago. So presentations to childbirth educators, midwives, and they went very well. But I didn't follow up about the classes because the classes hadn't been created at that time. So anyway, that's another thought for you. We'll talk about all of this in the Village Elders group. So for those of you who have graduated or who are close to graduating and wanting to run the parents program, that's where we have these sorts of discussions. So very, very exciting stuff. Very exciting stuff. I'm glad you could join us, Barb.
Yeah.
Thanks for making
another 10 minutes or so, and then I'm going to have to go.
No worries. Say hi to the family and Roberto for me. Ruth, welcome. Well done. You've even nice to see you.
Thank you. Sorry I was late to the chat. I came jumping off a different Zoom chat, and because I'm in sort of the same time zone as Barb. I'm in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. So it's actually 5:30 here, and I'm racing to get supper and get out the door. So if that's why you see me jumping out of my seat. Just really briefly, because I've met some of you online before, and I attended the Oregon thing via webinar, I guess, a couple months ago, whenever that was. I have several jobs, but I did take up doula work about 4 years ago. I'm kind of on the heels of doing a lot of childcare family work. And it was interesting to hear Barb say, because I'm really big on education, and I always say the same thing, that baby's going to get out no matter what, even if it's not maybe your ideal circumstance. But I've seen I tend to work right from prenatal through postpartum with limited clients, and I've seen just so much postpartum stress, postpartum depression, and I think so much of it can be headed off by education. And so I loved coming across Ellie's book a year or more ago, I guess. I started the program a year ago and have got caught up in life stuff, but my goal is to get back to it and finish it by Christmas. Because I see such a huge need. I've actually started giving out the Becoming Us book just as part of my doula package.
Oh, great.
Because I think it's important. Just read the book. If you have questions, ask me and I'll ask Ellie. but I think it's really benefited some of my clients. We have a lot of people here who work in the oil field, and so they're often separated from weeks at a time, and so that puts another glitch into communication. And just social pressures and just so many different areas of being a family that's really, really hard, even in the best circumstances. So I really hope that, I don't know where I'm going to go with it, but I would love to be able to initiate it up in this part of Canada and hopefully partner with people, or I'm part of our doula organization here. I just think it's really important. So I'm so grateful for the book and getting to know the community, and look forward to finishing the training.
Wow, fantastic, Ruth. You could, my cogs in my head are turning. You could even maybe potentially partner with the oil companies, because if they recognise that the extended absences take a huge toll on relationships, then they may well be willing to provide some education and support around that. So that's the corporate classes might be an option for you too. I've really noticed I do I contract to an EAP provider here in Sydney, so that's Employee Assistance Program provider. And so they're a private company that provide education, counselling, critical incident debriefing, etc. to corporations. And, it's huge. It's absolutely huge. So that's another option too. If there's an EAP that you could approach, let them know that you're trained in these courses, and is that something that they'd be willing to provide their clients with, and see how you go with that. Let me know, and that could be another option for people. So Kirsty, thanks Ruth. I can see that you've had to step away, but
okay, I'll be in and out.
So thanks for that. Yeah, no, I understand. It's difficult getting a time that suits everybody. So I appreciate you carving this out for yourself and for us. Great to see you. Kirsty, hi, great to see you.
Hi there, how are you?
You're next. Good, great.
I don't know if you can hear me properly. I only just unmuted.
Yes, we
can. Had an opportunity to complete the program last year, which was wonderful, and been applying all of the content to our program here in Sydney. So we're in the eastern suburbs in Sydney, and we loved the course. This is Lana and myself. So Lana is my partner. We own a small business called Parents Village in Sydney, which basically offers a range of pre and postnatal programs and services. So prenatally, we love to deliver Ellie's program, obviously, and we've titled that program "Birthing the Parent." And prenatally, we also provide Blessing Way services for mothers with their closest family members and friends. And then postnatally, we run a facilitated mothers group that sort of runs through specific themes and specific topics each week. And so I can definitely see relevance to the postpartum parents program from so many angles. I think it'd be amazing to be able to deliver something like that, after they've already become parents, and to catch those people up, the ones that missed out on the prenatal program. So far, the majority of our clients have asked to access the prenatal program, the Becoming Us program, privately. So I've delivered quite a few just to single couples in their homes, which has been great. We've struggled a lot to fill the group workshops, even though we have networked ourselves to the hilt and marketed ourselves to the hilt with all of the obstetricians and all of the GPs and all of the relative professionals and practitioners out there, especially in the east in Sydney. But we've sort of been edging our way a little bit to the inner west and a little bit to the north, but mainly staying in our sort of local area. I mean, there's tons and tons of professionals in our area that were super willing to hear about what's on offer and the Becoming Us program and how we were hoping to deliver that to parents. But I think there's still that sort of barrier in a sense that, they don't know what they need until it's too late, sort of thing. And I think still there's a barrier with lots of the obstetricians in our area, at least, who, even though they do want to deliver the best possible service to their own clients and their own patients, they just assume that once their job is done, it's done. And there's not much more that they need to do. So it's like they just take care of the transaction between, you know, the obstetric work, and then that's it. And so getting them to actually promote, you know, our service to their relative clients in the eastern suburbs has been really tricky for us. So we've also been sort of tinkering with the idea of whether we can deliver some of the information online, because we think it's much more accessible and for people to be able to complete it sort of self-paced in their own time. And also because I came from the corporate sector as a facilitator prior to doing all of this work, a couple of my former colleagues who've moved on to different roles have said they'd be interested for us to deliver it potentially in the corporate environment as well, because they offer sort of big employee benefits programs and diversity programs, and, you know, as part of their human resources sort of agenda. So it's becoming more and more important in that space. But it's been really hard to get people to acknowledge that it's actually really important. It's an important element of their own personal development, essentially. And we have had word of mouth referrals, which have been fantastic. So once we've delivered a program to a private couple, they've often referred us on to the next person, their closest friends or family, which has been great. But I guess my passion would be to run it for a large group. I'd love to be able to fill a classroom and to be able to facilitate the program to a big group of people. But we've advertised it so much, and the bites are very, very few and far between. So it's been a struggle for us.
So, Christy, can I ask if, with everything that you've done and knowing that it's hard to get a group for an antenatal class because expecting parents don't know what they don't know and they don't know what they need, do you think it might be easier to find a class for a postnatal group?
I definitely think the awareness of the needs at that stage is much greater. It's like the sudden shock into parenthood is what would more likely, I think, trigger people's desire to seek out some answers and to seek out some solutions quickly because they're already struggling. So often the case when I'm delivering the private programs, the questions are like, really? Like, is it really going to be like this? And, you know, because we're peachy now. Everything's peachy. And, you know, we're in the height of the coming together phase.
We're happy to be smile.
Exactly right. And so I really don't think that aha moment properly registers until those early weeks after. And it's funny. So I follow up with all of our clients, you know, a few weeks after they've given birth, and then a few months down the track again. And all of them say, only now does it all make sense. Obviously, that makes sense that they would say that. But they all say, I didn't really quite understand the value of the advice or the information that you were giving us until I was in it. So it's hard for them to sort of compute how it's going to be worthwhile for them because they think they're doing everything right already before the baby comes along.
Yeah.
I definitely think. Yeah.
So it could even be just using the information and the handouts as you go with clients and just plant the seed that there's a postnatal class.
Definitely. Yeah.
And even using that as a reassurance that if you've got any problems, there will be a postnatal class.
Yeah.
You know, whenever. So everything that you've got from the beginning of the course to the end of the course, you could use prenatally and just use those as opportunities to plant the seeds that there will be a postnatal class as an option.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. Yeah.
I mean, we'd love to be able
Maybe that's how it happens. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
We'd love to have more conversations around how you might prefer it to be translated to a more online delivery or a corporate delivery, because that's the sort of thing we'd love to do. And I guess because my passion was in facilitation as well, in the corporate sector, that's where I also get my energy, is doing it to really large groups and creating sort of an intimate conversation, but with a large group of people. So we'd love to be able to do that down the track somehow.
Fantastic. Yeah, well, it's definitely in the pipeline. There's a couple of people that are interested to do that. I need to get my ducks in a row for that to happen. It's going to be slightly different kind of arrangement to just the the one-offs that most of the doulas and midwives will be doing. So definitely, yeah, we'll be talking a lot more about that. It's exciting, very exciting stuff. All right.
Ellie, may I just ask one question in regards to the corporate? When that's run corporate, would the partner come in and join the business location for the day with the group, or do they run it corporate, just whoever's at work? So not as a couple?
Different businesses I found have done both options. So I've worked in companies where they've offered parenting programs for toddlers or nutrition or whatever it might be, and they have invited partners along to attend those events. So it kind of just depends on the budget of those businesses and how open-minded they are to sort of facilitate that collaborative partnership approach with the families involved with the business as well.
Yeah, great. I didn't know the answer to that. Thank you. Thanks, Kirsty. I'm hoping it will be with partners. I mean, I think that it's going to be a whole different experience if the partners are there, and they're going to get an awful lot more out of it if the partners are included. But like Kirsty said, it depends on. This is new for me, so it's exciting, very, very exciting. How are we going for time? I don't have a watch on. Are we close to
10 to 10, or in Sydney time?
Sorry, what is it?
10 to 10 Sydney time.
Can someone tell me? Everyone's muted.
It's 9:50.
Hang on.
We've almost covered an hour.
Okay, we've got about 8 minutes. Okay, fantastic. So who's finished? Who's finished their training since we last spoke? And do you have an object that represents your Becoming Us training journey? So if you remember at the last class, there was an invitation to choose an object that represents your Becoming Us training journey to share with the group. Does anyone have one to share? It's okay if you don't, but we had some fun. We've had some fun over our classes with people who had an object to share. No? I have to tell you about Carol. Oh, that's right. Beautiful. You've still got yours there, Rosie. It's beautiful.
Yes, this is my lovely, this is what I bought myself. And this is going back to self-care and realizing the importance of yourself in whatever you do. I bought this for myself to remind myself of all the work that I do to keep, parents and their babies together, and how this course is really, this is the next step in my journey to really improve that bond between the mum and the dad. We get so much about the mum and the baby, but this is about the mum and the dad and the children around and the whole family. So that's a lovely, lovely piece.
Isn't it beautiful? Where did you find it, Rosie? Did you just stumble across it, or did you look at?
Well, it's part of a series. It's from the Willow Tree series that you should find in most, these lovely gift stores, and it's called New Life. So you should be able to find it. I collect a lot of, I've got a whole heap of them here on my little table, of mums and dads or mums and babies and things. That's one of the things I like to collect. Yeah. So
it's just beautiful, isn't it?
Remember to buy yourself something. We buy presents for other people, but, we choose them with love. But it's so lovely to go and buy yourself a present. Say thank you to yourself.
I think that should be our homework. I don't usually assign homework after the Q&A.
Yeah.
I think that should be our homework. Buy ourselves something.
It doesn't have to be expensive. Just go and buy something, a bar of chocolate or whatever, and say, oh, that's for me for all this work that I've been doing.
Yeah. I think that's lovely. Reward ourselves. Thank you, Rosie. I love that. I love that that sculpture. It's just gorgeous. I alluded to another object in our chat on Facebook. Carol had just finished up with a client when she joined us for her final Q&A call, and they had given her, I think it was a pair of antlers. So her object was a pair of antlers, and she was going like this with them. It was so funny. Carol's in Canada, and deer shed antlers, I have to say. They were they came nice and clean and humanely. Deers actually shed their antlers. No animals were harmed in the making of that Becoming Us moment. Oh dear. All right, are there any final questions before we go? Some exciting stuff happening, lots of possibilities, lots of opportunities. So I know that it's a hard slog to get bums on seats first time around, but there's like my hope is that awareness will be raised, because lots of people are doing lots of different things in lots of different places, and people are just starting to hear about it and become awareness raising, I guess, for all of us is the challenge. But I think, or the hope is that anyway, that all parents will just know that they need to do some parenthood preparation, whether it's Becoming Us classes or something else. They'll know it's a thing, I suppose. Natalie, you want to say something?
The only thing I was going to say in regards to what Barb was saying is, you know how she was running things through the hospital and she was admitting that it made her life easy because they were doing all the marketing and registering, and she just turned up for her hourly wage. Yep. I've had a similar experience teaching hypnobirthing, because I've done hypnobirthing through community programs. So I don't know what it's like in different countries, but of course in Australia here we have community colleges, and they run Japanese lessons and they run Indian cooking classes, and those community colleges are perfectly happy to run any course that sounds good and nice. So I went to a couple, like I've done it once, a couple of times in Sydney and a couple of times at Central Coast. I just went to a community college and I just proposed, would you like a hypnobirthing course? And they say yes. And they publish it in the program, they email it out, they put it in the leaflets, and they pay you an hourly wage.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, and I think they'd be very interested in this program. So if there is anyone near a community college and they've noticed these programs coming out, because that way you don't have to do any of your marketing or promotion yourself. Having said that, just because I was in the community program didn't mean people immediately enrolled. So what I was doing when I did that was still sort of chatting to people in the community and mentioning to them and helping enrollments. But when I did it down in Orbit in Sydney, I worked really, really hard to get some enrollments for the first couple of courses. Like I went to midwives, for instance. Midwives were very happy to mention it to people because it was heaps more affordable through the community program as well for couples. But it started to, the ball started rolling. Word of mouth spread fast, and I was getting full courses. And they were even helping at one stage, because it was council funded, that one, they were even helping to fund my materials. So yeah, it doesn't just have to be hospitals, because if the hospital's a little bit, like up here in Newcastle, the hospital's very close-knit. The community's very close-knit. They already have what they have, and they won't even talk to me about my ideas. So yeah, if you're in an area where your hospital just for some reason isn't willing to talk about it, there's definitely the community colleges are an option, or TAFEs maybe even. Hello.
That's a great suggestion, Natalie. I'll include that in the chat that we're having in the Village Elders group. At the moment, we're having a brainstorming session in there, so I'll add that to that. And the other thing that I'll add to, which I thought of, and I think that I spoke to you about it, Rosie, is because it is a pilot, applying for funding from a community organisation or so. You know, there's lots of different organisations. I have never done it myself. I don't know how easy a process it is, but I do know that there are lots of different organisations. It might even be a sporting organisation. It might be a community organisation. It might be I don't know, whatever else. And apply for funding so that the parents can do it at a very, very, very reduced rate. Say it's a pilot, it's a brand new program. It's only going to cost you X amount per couple because it is a pilot. It will never be offered at this price again. Talk to your local newspaper to get a story. That's how we did it through Interrelate. And we filled the class that way. So that's another option too. That's another option as well.
Can I just say, Ellie, that one of my sort of areas of special interest is around bereavement, stillbirth, and child loss. And I'm putting together a paper to go to our local SANS conference that I'm doing in a few weeks' time. And I want to bring in, I mean, part of that, the paper that I'm focusing on is about relationships, you know, with parents who have gone through loss. And I think it's a huge area that isn't sort of covered. And while I've been looking at the literature, there's not a lot in the literature at the moment about, there's not a lot of studies been done around what actually happens to the parents after loss and their intimate relationship. There's a lot, again, about how they interact with children and their community, but not actually about their personal relationship, their intimate relationship. So just to say that's another string, I think, to the bow that we can,
Absolutely.
we can add.
It's another a gap we can fill.
Yes, yeah. So watch this space.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a great idea, Rosie. And Rosie, you're going to Marseille?
I am going to Marseille, yes, I've got my tickets booked.
Anyone else going to Marseille, Brisbane? No, I wish I could, but
yeah. Oh, well, I shall
right.
go and I shall
hello to everyone
talk
for
to
me.
people.
whoever knows who I am. Yeah, awesome. I need to get back to you about that too. All right. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. I think it's probably time now. Thanks so much for making time this morning, this evening, this afternoon, wherever you are. It's lovely to see all your faces. Kirsty, we're lucky enough to live close by that we could organise another lunch at some stage. I'd like to catch up with both you and Lana and hear how you're going. Yes. Karen, I'm glad to see you're back on track. It's lovely to see your little girl, Natalie. My gosh, she's grown. And great to see you too, Sajal. It's been a while since we've spoken. So awesome. Thanks again. Nice to see you all.
Thank you.
I'll see you online. See you on Facebook.
Bye-bye.
Lots of love.